Well, I mentioned the typhoon already, just crazy wind and storms, and it did get really cold sometimes. I've heard that happens in Russia. But that's probably the craziest it got. Definitely to remember that God is easily pleased but hard to satisfy, and fighting that perfectionist tendency. Definitely really loving the people, even when they are yelling at you on the streets. They just don't know, or they're having a bad day, but it doesn't matter. It's still God's child. There's one in particular called holodietz, which is basically gel, like it has the texture of jello, and it has like little shredded chicken on the top, and apparently, and it tastes like chicken, but it has the texture of jello. And apparently they make it by boiling chicken for just a long, long time, and then they put it out to freeze, and it turns in, it goes from this water to this like gelatin substance. It was basically chicken jello. Oh, they ate a lot of fish there, which we tried to avoid because personally, I'm not a huge fish person anyways, but we weren't allowed to eat freshwater fish because of pollution, I think. So only if it was deep sea fish, but personally I don't know the difference. I don't know what fish is from what area, so we just, as a general rule, didn't eat fish. I really love borscht, beet soup. It's when it's made well, it's awesome. I also really liked a food called plov, which is like a rice and chicken and some vegetables, and plov is specifically the spice that went into it. But that's not Russian. I think it's from Uzbekistan, but that was really good too. We met this one woman who lived in LA, and she had never heard of the Mormon Church, but she lived in LA, and she had come back to Russia for her mother's funeral, which is, of course, one of the times when people are they start to wonder about the big picture in life, and it kind of pulls them out of the daily routine. And often they're more receptive to missionaries at that time because they're out of the daily routine, and because they're thinking about big questions like, why am I even here? What's the point? Where did my mom go? And so we taught her about the plan of salvation, and she had never heard anything like it. She believed in reincarnation, and that thought just terrified her, the thought of coming back. But she really, really loved the plan of salvation. Then I got transferred away, but she was planning on going back to LA too. So I haven't heard from her, but my hope was that she would, when she went to LA, now that she knew about the Mormon Church, she would recognize it, maybe talk to missionaries there too. Maybe they would get to show her the temple, just things like that they don't have in Russia. I'm really excited for the day when there will be a temple in Russia. Sometimes visiting members of the 70 would come, and in one particularly memorable case, there was Larry Lawrence came. He actually spoke at the last General Conference, the What Lack I Yet talk, which was fantastic. But so that was always amazing and super inspiring. But he asked his wife, who's a great scriptorian, to talk about what exactly it means to be gathering Israel. And even the concept of Israel, I had never thought about it like that, but she told us about how the members of the House of Israel were particularly valiant in the premortal life, and they were sent to Earth to influence everyone around them for good. And she talked about how the 10 tribes of Israel, they went up north, and what's directly north from Israel is Ukraine, and kind of spread out from there. And she talked about how the church keeps records of everyone's patriarchal blessings, and they do keep track of tribes, at least numbers. I don't how many people are from what tribe. And it wasn't until the patriarchs started visiting Ukraine and Russia, and probably other countries surrounding too, but those two stuck out in my mind because I was in Russia. It wasn't until then that they started finding tribes that weren't Ephraim and Manasseh. And in my mission, I've heard that every tribe is represented. I personally met about probably 8 or 9 different tribes, people from different tribes that I knew of. But it was really inspiring. Just, you were gathering the house of Israel in a very, very literal sense in Russia. One of the 70 members who visited, it was Elder Randall Bennett. And I don't know how this got started, but everyone was really nervous about him coming. Apparently, the last time he had come, as the stories were, because, gossip travels around the mission somehow, even though we didn't communicate with missionaries in other cities. The stories were that he had really chastised the missionaries the last time he had visited Vladivostok, and some people were saying that he even threw a shoe at them. So we were all really nervous. And then he came, and it was just awesome and completely mind-blowing. But at one point, he was talking to us, and he asked us who really believed that they were going to go to the celestial kingdom, and only a few people raised their hands. And he stopped, and he got down from behind the podium, and he walked out. And picture a room about, it was the chapel, but it was an empty room that they would set up chairs in, maybe about the size of a section of a cultural hall or something. And he walked out, and he started to tear up, and he said, you're going to go to the celestial kingdom. If you just stay right on the path you're on, and you're going to go. And a lot of what he talked about was perfectionism, and the idea that missionaries constantly have, that they're not good enough, they're not doing well enough, that they're not doing enough. And he said something that I really love. He said that our heavenly parents are so, so proud of us. And he even used the word grateful. They're grateful for the work that we're doing with their children, how we're helping to help them to return. They're so, so proud of us, and they're so glad that we're doing what we're doing. And yes, they wish often that we would do more, but that doesn't mean that they're displeased with the efforts that we do make. So that was probably one of the biggest life lessons I learned, that God is easily pleased, but hard to satisfy. I learned how to cook some Russian food. Oh, that's a good skill. I'm better at talking to people than I was before. And it just comes with 1.5 years of practice. I'm better at letting criticisms just kind of bounce off of me, because missionaries will get a lot of criticism, and you can't take it personally, and you can't internalize it. It's their problem. You're doing what you can. I served with a companion, and she was learning / experimenting with the diminutive case, where they'll add little endings to make things cuter or imply littleness or diminutive case. And it was right around Christmas time, and we were telling a less active about an Easter activity that we were going to do as a branch. And my companion told her that we were going to be coloring eggs, and she put eggs in a diminutive case. And the less active member, she just started to laugh, and she said, "Boys?" And then she just kind of, she wouldn't answer why she thought it was so funny. So when we got home, we looked it up, and it turns out that one of the meanings of putting eggs in diminutive case is testicles. That was a memorable mistake.